Hey people, I've been thinking a lot lately about what actually makes someone a good fencer. Is it your position on Hema ratings or the number of historical sources you have studied and can quote? While both have their place in an argument and can be indicators of knowledge and experience, the truth is, it's a bit more complex than that. The easiest way to find out where you really stand is to fence against truly skilled opponents. After a few bouts, or even a tournament, you will know whether you are on the right track or not. But what if you don't have the opportunity? Maybe there aren't that many tournaments nearby, or the best fencers simply live too far away. This is what I call a geographic bias. Some people rank very high simply because they only compete within their own region. So they are the best in their country, but when the quality in general is quite low, you most probably will have a problem in international tournaments. So today I want to share 3 ways you can look at your own progress and how to tell if you're becoming a good fencer, already are one, or just think you are. Whatever happens in sparring or in tournaments, you should always understand why a technique or tactic worked or didn't work. Because only those who understand their mistakes can truly improve. One of the worst things that can happen is winning without knowing why. Sounds strange, right? But if you're winning simply because you're the best in your club, without being able to put your performance into a context and understand why you're winning, you're building on shaky ground. Then you go to tournaments, face fencers outside your usual cycle, and suddenly you get crushed. That's probably your wake-up call. If you lose badly under new rules or against unfamiliar styles, something isn't working. But that's fine, as long as you analyze your fights afterwards and figure out what went wrong. If you just shrug your shoulders and say, "It wasn't my day" or "I have a tough pool," you're probably not as good as a fencer as you think you are. The same goes for people who simply replicate historical techniques without understanding why they work. Every drill, every exercise you do should make sense to you. You should be able to explain why one technique works better than another and why the technique is actually working. You don't need to know every single play from Joachim Meyer or Johannes Lichtauer to be a good fencer. In my opinion, it's enough to have 3 to 5 techniques that you can execute really well. But that means mastering them, not just being okay. And it's not about being a one-trick pony who spams the same moves over and over again. It's about building your entire game around those key techniques, knowing when and why to use them. For example, if your go-to move is a thrust to the chest or a simple hand snipe move, make sure you understand why it works, when it is effective, and how it fits into your overall strategy. Techniques shouldn't exist in isolation. They should be part of a consistent system. A red line that connects everything you do. Only then you can refine and evolve your style. Let's stay with the situation of the thrust. Ask yourself, why a thrust to the torso? One possible answer: the torso is the largest target area, so the chances to hit with a thrust is high. Also, if my opponent parries the thrust, the angle created by the parry can make the thrust continue to the arm or to the head. Now ask yourself, when is it effective? We can imagine different scenarios and plan how to react. One strong scenario is when the opponent changes their guard or move their Longsword out of the center. Whenever this happens and I'm in reach, I immediately will attack. Why is this effective? If my opponent tries to parry this thrust, he must move in the opposite direction. So he needs to stop his current movement and start another movement. It's the same principle of a feint, where you feint to the right, your opponent reacting to it, and then this gives you a lot of time to strike to the other side, and your opponent still focused on his parry was actually useless. This scenario does not work every time, but it is a possible approach to try this out in training and actually stress test it Now remember what I said about standalone techniques. Here you can add a second technique that creates the situation we want. In this case, a hand snipe would fit well. A hand snipe can make the opponent change their guard and then open the situation for the thrust. And here you have it. Welcome to the world of tactical fencing. This last point is probably the most obvious, but also the hardest to achieve. Like in any other sports, consistency is key. And I don't just mean showing up to training, I mean consistent performance. If you find yourself being eliminated by beginners in one tournament and the next you make it to the finals, that's not consistent. If your success depends on the judges, the fences in your pools, or you're over a mood at that day, you still have a lot of work to do. That doesn't mean that you never lose to some people below your level. That happens to the best of us, but it should be an exception, not the rule. Speaking as someone who usually ranked in A tier at the most tournaments, I still have to take a step back and stay objective. I personally struggle more when fencing, for example in Poland or Slovakia, than I struggle in Austria or Germany, which clearly shows that I fall in the first category I mentioned earlier. In my local scene I might be doing great, but internationally I'm probably in the midfield. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it's also a necessary one if you want to keep improving. So here's my final advice. Lower your ego, try to improve every training, every tournament, but also celebrate every small victory along the way. Even if this video sounds a bit critical, don't forget to enjoy the progress. Without joy, the journey to the top isn't worth it.